As I mentioned, last year they won the state championship. The second time the school has won a state championship. And they did it with a coach in his first year as the head coach of the program, although he had been with the program in the past as offensive coordinator. But his team went on a run and finished as the Division II state champions. Chad Murphy, the head football coach at Cincinnati Winton Woods, visits with us this evening. Coach, good to talk to you again. We had a chance to talk last year as your team got close to the state championship game, and I had a chance to call one of your playoff games as well too last year. And I thought it'd be interesting to have you come back on and talk about where your program is right now, unbeaten, ranked number 2 in the state of Ohio. First of all, what's the biggest difference between this team and the one last year, Coach, that went to the state championship game and won it?
Well, there's a lot of similarities. Football is really important here. Has been for a long, long time. We've got a pretty good football team right now that's kind of been handling business. Currently sitting at 8-0. So just trying to take it one week at a time. It's a great place with great kids, and like I said, football really matters here.
And when we talked last year, I remember you telling me that how special a place Cincinnati Winton Woods is and how the kids really bought into the program. And I think a lot of that, Coach, really showed the, I guess, stability of the program. When Coach Parker leaves and goes over to Princeton, you come in already on the staff. That certainly had to help. But the kids, it didn't really seem, although you were 4-3 at one point, but it didn't really seem like they missed a beat as far as preparation, as far as their buying into the program. It seemed to me like, and from what you said last year, Coach, that everything went kind of smoothly in that regard.
Yeah, it really did. And, this was my third different job, at a different school. And I just think, the kids trusted the process. Obviously, having a relationship prior to assuming the head coaching duties was probably pretty important as well. But, stability. This place has had some stability. Coach Everhart was here, I think, 10 or 11 years. And then Coach Parker took over for 10 or 11 years. And, it's had a lot of stability. I told these kids last year when I got the job since day one that this place is, it's about this place, not myself. So, we kept a lot of the traditions and a lot of things that's been going on here for so long. I think that's probably could have been one of the biggest mistakes I made was to come in and try to change a bunch of things. But, you mentioned, we started out 1-2 last year, 4-3 once upon a time, and just kind of trusted the process and just kept getting better and better and focusing on ourselves. And that's kind of how we've approached this year. Obviously there's no hiding this year coming off a state championship from last year. But we've just taken it 1 week at a time and trying to focus on us and not so much who's on the sideline across from us, but just focusing on us, bettering ourselves. We're currently sitting at 8-0. So, looking forward to this week and seeing if we can be 1-0 again this week.
You mentioned that knowing that everyone would be gunning for your team this season, but that's something that the Winton Woods program, that's something you've had to deal with and this program's had to deal with for a number of years. It's not as if you suddenly burst onto the scene last year and won to the state championship. I mean, there's a great deal of tradition there. As I mentioned, you won a state championship. The program did in 2009. You played for the state championship in 2017. So it's not as if you just kind of snuck up on people last year. Your program's always kind of had that mentality of we know everyone's out to get us.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I still think that, we play a little bit of that underdog role and we kind of ride with that. And even this year to an extent, we're gonna use any advantage we can. Obviously, there's no hiding. And like you said, I believe that about previous years, no doubt about it. But 09, obviously winning it in 09, runner up in 17, and then obviously getting it done last year, just handling business. It's just. It's just about focusing on us, and being representing this place and the guys that played it before us. And, there's a lot of whys we have around here, not only our individual ones of our guys and our coaches, but our program as a whole and trying to represent and make them guys proud.
What's the biggest difference, Coach, in going, and you've done this before, you've been a head coach at other places before, in Ohio and in other states as well, too. What's the biggest difference from being an assistant coach with a program and now being the head coach of a program, and especially in the unique situation you took over in for a guy who's been there for 11 years?
Yeah, I just think, you realize the importance of your assistants, becoming a head coach again, you realize how important your assistants are. And, And, you're only as good as your assistants. And we've got a really, really good staff, probably one of the best staffs I've been on in my 22 years. Some guys that obviously love the game, and the majority of them love Winton Woods football, and obviously love our kids. But I think that combination of loving the game and truly loving your kids and building relationships with your kids, and that was, I hate to use the word easier, because usually with football, not a whole lot easy, but that did make it a little easier, assuming the job as head coach last year, already having a little bit of a relationship with these kids.
When you hit that mark last year, as you talked about, 1-2 to start, 4-3, and we talked about how the kids really, there really was no question about them buying into where you were at. But at that 4-3 mark last year, and I know it was last year, but still you went on to win the state championship. What at that point was it at that point where everything just really kind of clicked in for your team last season?
Yeah, really it was. We were learning our kids. We had a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new special teams coordinator, new head football coach. There was a lot of new. So obviously us as a staff getting to know our kids, what they were best at, and then kind of, I think at the beginning, when you take over somewhere, you kind of do what maybe best. But then as you get to know your kids, you start to tailor your system towards the kids that you have, and I think that was as big a piece of it as anything. Kids, hats off to our kids, obviously accepting change, not fighting it. All those were huge factors. So hats off to our kids and obviously our staff.
When the season started this year, you opened up with a win over a pretty good Trotwood Madison team, and you've been rolling since then. You had a close one against a very good Kings team, which you ended up beating 28-23. They're 7-1 on the season as well, too. I asked you at the top of our conversation the big difference between this team and last year's team. Have you been on the roll since the season started? Obviously, you want to get better each week out, but is this team, was it ready to go the moment you kicked the football off back in August?
Yeah, I think it was. Our senior leaders, our team captains have done a really good job of showing up when they're supposed to be here, working their tails off, doing everything we ask them to do, and then more. This place has always had a lot of talent. We've kind of really emphasized the iron sharpens iron and getting better on a daily basis and things like that. But I think starting off this year, we knew what was going on. There was no hiding anymore, like we talked about. But they've been ready to go. We've kind of made things a little interesting here the last couple of Friday nights. But once again, that was more on us than it was really on our opponent. And hats off to our opponents, both Kings and Milford, really good football teams. But we turned the ball over a couple times here the last few weeks, and we've been really good value in the football most of the year. But these last 2 weeks, we've turned it over a couple times and made things a little interesting when I don't feel like they really needed to be.
You talked a moment ago about the tradition of the program and some of the talent that's come through the doors at Winton Woods. There's a guy by the name of Mayan Williams who's having a pretty good season just a short distance from here and up the road from Cincinnati over at Ohio
Right.
State. And I can recall seeing him play back a few years ago in a game I called when they came up to Upper Arlington and won. That was one of the better performances I think I've ever seen a running back have. When you have a player like that and some of the other talent, again, that's come down the pike at Winton Woods, that has to be a good, I don't know, maybe rallying point for the kids now to say, hey, see what can happen with the work ethic and the things and the efforts you put into the program. You have a possibility of doing some great things once you get out of high school.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Obviously, you got to have great players, and I've been blessed here my first couple of years as the head coach at Winton Woods to continue that. Obviously, we've got some really, really talented young men, and I think you combine that with some coaching and things like that. And I think it's just such a good mix. It's been a blast. And I just feel like, this football team's got a chance to play football, as long as they want to play football. But we got to take care of ourselves. And number one, we got to take care of the football.
You talked about some of the talent that you have right now. Why don't you throw some names at us? Give us some guys, some of your top performers now as we go into week number 9 of the season, Coach.
Well, obviously, there's Jermaine Matthews. He's a team captain. He'll be an Ohio State Buckeye next year. He might probably the best corner or is the best corner in the state of Ohio, one of the tops in the country. Has not played a down of offense yet, but he had a 80-yard kickoff return. He's had a punt return. He's had 3 pick sixes. He had a pick six called back. So he has been able to influence football games and scoring points, and hasn't touched the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, he's had a great season thus far. Cam Calhoun, another corner that'll attend University of Cincinnati next year. Trey Cornice, a running back that'll attend Georgia Tech next year, has been off to a really good start. So those are our three big name guys. But I could go on for minutes upon minutes about the rest of our guys. Just a really good senior class, showing up, leading by example, and obviously a really good supporting cast of 2025s and 2024s as well.
After the state championship game last year, Coach, you said that you'll love this team forever. The one last year, the won the state championship, your first go-around as the head coach. Is there any way to put into any other kind of words than that what that team meant to you last year?
Yeah, obviously, when you coach, when you begin coaching, when you begin playing, I think you always think about envision, being the best, and to say that we were the best football team in the state of Ohio last year in Division II, obviously the ultimate prize that we could achieve, and obviously being a first year made it just that much sweeter. But I wear this ring every day of my life. My wife had to talk me out of sleeping in it. It's just I think part of that was, in my coaching career, I've been a state of Ohio coach of the year. I've been fired, and now I've won a state championship. So, I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows, I've seen everything in between, and just not taking a day of this for granted. The opportunity to coach young people, and coach the game of football, and to coach it at such a wonderful place like Winton Woods, just couldn't be more blessed.
It really makes you appreciate. I know that's an overused term in sports and almost in everyday life, but it really makes you appreciate what you're doing and where you're at right now, doesn't it?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think last year and even this year, I think that's one of the biggest things I can express to these kids is, I'm going to be like, my job is to be the parent and to remind you of things, the important things, and not taking a day for granted, is one of those. And we try to do a really good job of that around here.
Loveland comes up on Friday night, a 4-4 team. Then you close out with 3-5 Lebanon. Right now, 8-0, ranked number 2 in the state and number 1 in your computer poll. Coach Chad Murphy at Cincinnati Winton Woods. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I appreciate you coming on tonight. It was good talking to you last year. Congratulations on the state championship. And I got a sneaky feeling we might be talking to you in Canton again this year. Thanks very much.
Appreciate your time, Marty.
All right, take care. Chad Murphy, the head football coach at Cincinnati Winton Woods. And, yeah, that's a program. You just heard him, the 3 top players he mentioned in his team, they're all going to Power 5 schools. So it's a program that, without a doubt, is one of the powerhouses in the Cincinnati area. And they tend to play some pretty good high school football in that part of the state as well, too. Certainly you know the names that come around. But this is a program that has certainly laid claim to being one of the top programs, certainly in Division II, and without a doubt in the southwestern part of the state of Ohio, and that's Cincinnati Winton Woods. And again, our thanks to Chad Murphy, the head coach at Winton Woods, for visiting with us here on tonight's edition of Ohio Football Week. Then again, they have Loveland this week, a team that's 4-4, and then they close up at home with a 3-5 Lebanon team. So far this year, they've beat Trotwood Madison, Walnut Hills, West Claremont, knocked off a couple of 7-1 teams. They beat Turpin, and 2 weeks ago, beat Kings, and coming off a 28-14 win over Milford last week. The Cincinnati Winton Woods Warriors going on their way towards, as I mentioned with Coach Murphy, I got a sneaky suspicion we're going to see them in Canton again coming up in the first weekend in the month of December.